This is Sergeant First Class Mose, and today we'll discuss the SHARP Annual Refresher Training. In a classroom environment with facilitated group discussions, student handouts, and optional scenarios involving sexual harassment and sexual assault in accordance with the Army SHARP policy and in compliance with the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Core Competencies, the student will complete SHARP Annual Refresher Training, ensuring compliance with Army policy. Students will have met this standard when they demonstrate behavior consistent with the Army SHARP program by participating in the following activities. Describe the impact of sexual harassment and sexual assault on the Army. Discuss sexual harassment and possible punishment. Discuss sexual assault, consent, possible punishment, and risk reduction strategies. Describe sexual assault reporting options. Discuss sexual assault victims' rights, confidentiality, expedited transfer, protective orders, and special victims counsel. Define the Army's policy on retaliation. Describe online misconduct and social media guidance. Describe the bystander intervention process. We will be discussing sexual harassment and sexual assault using language, themes, and scenarios that could traumatize some attendees. In this lesson, we will describe the impact of sexual harassment and sexual assault on the Army, discuss sexual harassment and possible punishment, discuss sexual assault, consent, possible punishment, and risk reduction strategies, describe sexual assault reporting options, discuss sexual assault victims' rights, confidentiality, expedited transfer, and protective orders, define the Army's policy on retaliation, describe online misconduct and social media guidance, describe the bystander intervention process. Definition of sexual harassment. Conduct that involves unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and deliberate or repeated offensive comments or gestures of the sexual nature when submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly, a term or condition of a person's job, pay, or career. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by a person is used as a basis for career or employment decisions affecting that person, or such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment, and is so severe or pervasive that a reasonable person would perceive, and the victim does perceive, the environment as hostile or offensive. Any use or condemnation by any person in a supervisory or command position of any form of sexual behavior to control, influence, or affect the career, pay, or job of a member of the armed forces or a civilian employee in the Department of Defense. Any deliberate or repeated unwelcome verbal comment or gesture of a sexual nature by any member of the armed forces or civilian employee of the Department of Defense. Sexual harassment is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. It destroys teamwork and negatively affects combat readiness. Army leadership must create an environment conducive for productivity and respect. Set the standard to soldiers and DA civilians to follow. A successful mission is achieved in an environment free of sexual harassment. Prevention is the responsibility of every soldier, DA civilian, and family member. The Army sexual harassment policy applies on and off the installation 24/7. Military complainants do not have the right to sue the offender. Complainants are encouraged to confront subject or offenders. Army policy does not require complainants of sexual harassment to confront the subject or offender. File formal complaints when the brigade level SART or higher. Soldiers have 60 calendar days to file a formal complaint. Family members are eligible to file formal complaints. There are three categories of sexual harassment: verbal, nonverbal, and physical contact. Verbal includes telling sexual jokes, using sexually explicit profanity or threats, sexually oriented cadences or sexual comments, whistling in a sexual suggestive manner, describing certain attributes of one's physical appearance in a sexual manner, using terms of endearment such as honey, sweetheart, stud, or hunk. Nonverbal includes staring at someone, undressing someone with your eyes, blowing kisses, winking, or licking one's lips in a suggestive manner, displaying inappropriate printed material like sexually oriented pictures or cartoons, using sexually oriented screensavers on one's computer, sending sexually oriented texts, notes, letters, faxes, or emails, posting sexually oriented comments or images on social media. Physical contact includes touching, patting, pinching, bumping, or grabbing, cornering or blocking in a passageway, providing unsolicited back or neck rubs, and kissing. There are two types of sexual harassment: quid pro quo or hostile work environment. Quid pro quo is demanding sexual favors in exchange for a promotion, award, or favorable assignment. Disciplining or relieving a subordinate who refuses sexual advances, threatening a poor job evaluation for refusing sexual advances. Incidents of quid pro quo sexual harassment may also have a harassing effect on third persons. A hostile work environment includes using derogatory gender-biased terms, making comments about body parts, displaying sexually suggestive pictures, telling sexually explicit jokes, and unwanted touching. The sexual harassment checklist includes: is the behavior sexual in nature? Is the behavior unwelcome? Would a reasonable person find the behavior inappropriate? Does one or more of the following exist? Power, control, or influence, hostile or offensive environment. Responses to sexual harassment include making an anonymous complaint, which encourages the reporting of incidents while maintaining anonymity, using a direct approach by confronting the harasser and informing the person that the behavior is not appreciated or welcome and it must stop. Focus on the behavior and its impact, and offer behavior-centered feedback. Use a third party by asking someone else to talk to the harasser, to accompany the complainant, or to intervene on behalf of the complainant to resolve the conflict. Using the chain of command to report behavior to your immediate supervisor or others in the chain of command and ask for assistance in resolving the situation. File a formal complaint in writing using a DA Form 7279. The commander is notified and requires a reprisal plan. Civilians may file an EEO complaint in accordance with AR 690-600. What is sexual assault? Sexual assault is a crime. Sexual assault is defined as intentional sexual contact characterized by the use of force, threats, intimidation, or abuse of authority, or when the victim does not or cannot consent. The term includes a broad category of sexual offenses of the following specific UCMJ offenses: rape, sexual assault, aggravated sexual contact, abusive sexual contact, forcible sodomy, or attempts to commit these offenses. The Army policy on sexual assault. Sexual assault is a criminal offense. Sexual assault degrades mission readiness. Every soldier who is aware of sexual assault should immediately report incidents. Sexual assault is punishable under laws, UCMJ, or federal state laws for DA civilians. Those who commit sexual assault offenses will be held appropriately accountable. All victims of sexual assault will be treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. This policy applies to both on and off post, duty, and non-duty hours. What is consent? Consent is a freely given agreement to the conduct at issue by a competent person. An expression of lack of consent through words or conduct means there is no consent. Lack of verbal or physical resistance or submission resulting from the use of force, threat of force, or placing another person in fear does not constitute consent. A current or previous dating or social sexual relationship by itself, or the manner of dress for the person involved with the accused in the conduct at issue shall not constitute consent. A sleeping, unconscious, or incompetent person cannot consent. This is not consent, it is sexual assault. A person who commits a sexual act upon another person when the person knows or reasonably should know that the other person is asleep, unconscious, or otherwise unaware that the sexual act is occurring, or when the person is incapable of consenting to the sexual act due to impairment by any drug, intoxicant, or other similar substance, and that condition is known or reasonably should be known by the person, or a mental disease or defect or physical disability, and that condition is known or reasonably should be known by the person, is guilty of sexual assault. To reduce the risk of sexual assault, don't abuse alcohol, don't leave drinks unattended, don't accept a drink from a stranger, communicate your boundaries, travel with a friend or group. You have the right to say no. Don't allow yourself to be isolated. When you sense danger, flee. And be mindful not to blame the victim. The Sexual Assault Response Coordinator, the SAPR, VA, or healthcare personnel can receive a restricted report. Chaplains cannot file a report, but information shared remains confidential. The commander, CID, JAG, IG, the SARC, the VA, or healthcare personnel can receive an unrestricted report. The limitations of this are more people would know about the sexual assault, the investigation may be intrusive and difficult, and it cannot be changed to a restricted report. If the reported offender is in the victim's chain of command or NCO support channel, the victim can report to law enforcement directly, go outside of the chain of command to a SARC or a VA from another unit, or report the offense to a higher command. Victims can also seek assistance from the DoD Safe Helpline. Rule 514. A victim has a privilege to refuse to disclose and to prevent any other person from disclosing a confidential communication made between the victim and a victim advocate, or between the alleged victim and Department of Defense Safe Helpline staff in case arising under the UCMJ. If such communication has made for the purpose of facilitating advice or assistance to the victim. Confidential communication also applies to records the Sexual Assault Response Coordinator and the victim advocate maintain pertaining to communications with the victim. These communications with SARC and VA and their associated records are considered privileged and are not to be released to others, including to commanders or law enforcement personnel. Expedited transfer requests. Sexual assault victims who file an unrestricted report can request an expedited transfer or reassignment from their current unit. The transfer or reassignment may be another unit at a different geographical location, a different unit on the installation, another company within the same battalion, another battalion within the same brigade, another brigade within the same division. The request must be submitted in writing using a DA Form 4187. The commander, battalion or above, has 72 hours to recommend approval or disapproval of the request. A military protective order is a short-term order issued by a unit commander against an active duty service member under his or her command. The MPO is intended to safeguard victims, quell disturbances, and maintain good order and discipline while victims have time to pursue protection orders through civilian courts. It will remain in effect until such time as the commander terminates the order or issues a replacement order. They are not enforceable by civilian authorities off-post. Off-post violations of the MPO should be reported to the issuing commander, DoD Law Enforcement and Criminal Investigation Division for investigation. As per Army Directive 2014-20, Prohibition of Retaliation Against Soldiers for Reporting a Criminal Offense, no soldier may retaliate against a victim, an alleged victim, or another member of the armed forces based on that individual's report of a criminal offense. Retaliation can take on three types of actions: taking or threatening to take an adverse action or unfavorable personnel action, or withholding or threatening to withhold a favorable personnel action, ostracism, acts of cruelty, oppression, or maltreatment. Retaliation is defined as taking or threatening to take an adverse or unfavorable personnel action, or withholding or threatening to withhold a favorable personnel action with respect to a victim or other member of the armed forces because the individual reported a criminal offense or is believed to have reported a criminal offense. Personnel action is defined as any action taken against a member of the armed forces that affects or has the potential to affect that member's current position or career. Such actions include a promotion, a disciplinary or other corrective action, a transfer or reassignment, a performance evaluation, a decision on pay, benefits, awards, or training, referral for mental health evaluations, and other significant change in duties or responsibilities inconsistent with the member's grade. These allegations of retaliation will be referred to and investigated by appropriate Inspector General. Ostracism, which is defined as excluding from social acceptance, privilege, or friendship a victim or other member of the armed forces because A, the individual reported a criminal offense, B, the individual was believed to have reported a criminal offense, and C, the ostracism was motivated by the intent to discourage reporting of a criminal offense or otherwise discourage due to administration of justice, or act of cruelty, oppression, and maltreatment committed against the victim, an alleged victim, or another member of the armed forces by peers or other persons, because the individual reported criminal offense or was believed to have reported a criminal offense. These allegations of retaliation described will be referred to the battalion commander or higher commander to develop a plan immediately and address the issue and forward the plan to the SARB chair per Army Directive 2015-16. Online misconduct, the use of electronic communication to inflict harm. Examples include, but are not limited to, bullying, hazing, stalking, discrimination, retaliation, or any other types of misconduct that undermine dignity and respect. Punishable under U.S. Code and UCMJ Articles 88, 89, 91, 120B, 120C, and 134. Before you post online, think what message will be sent, who will potentially view it, and its impact. Type messages consistent with the Army's values, and post if the message demonstrates dignity and respect for self and others. 7 social media tips. Be aware of the image you present. Ensure information you post or share is releasable. Live the U.S. Army values. Do not use trademarked or copyright protected material. Do not misrepresent your identity. Be cautious with the personal information you share. Ask for help if you or a family member have fallen victim to a scam, impersonation, or feel threatened. All officers and enlisted soldiers are duty-bound to intervene, act, and motivate others to stop sexual harassment and sexual assault, and help foster an environment free of these behaviors. The bystander intervention process. Notice the event. Interpret the event as a problem. Assume personal responsibility for doing something. Decide how to intervene. Act. Bystander intervention strategies. Do something. Change the subject matter. Distract the offender. Remove the victim from the hostile environment. Cause an interruption. Serve as an ally to the victim. Call for help. Be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. These are several resources for you and your family members. In summary, sexual harassment and sexual assault is counter to the Army values and degrades our unit readiness. Our profession is built on trust between all members of the Army team. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. Your actions can stop the next sexual harassment or sexual assault.